sent out. Get the bot in here. Walk on screen and get Discord posted. So many steps. Hello, everyone. This is Chris Ingerson, and it is July 28th, and this is the July 28th Text Quest Devstream. So, today we are going to be focusing on custom adventure logic. Specifically, we are going to be focusing on um, two main things that I want to do. One is I would like to get the um, usability for the context menu to feel a little bit better. Currently, if you right click in, actually, I haven't tested this after, oh, yeah. This is going to be a little different, a little messed up because I just changed how I was spawning, or how I was handling the UI right before I streamed, so of course things are going to look weird. Um, so that's going to be something we have to fix today. Main thing is I want to make it so that you can't do that. Have part of this context menu show up outside of our bounds. So we're going to do some safety checks there, basically see if a rect is overlapping, and then if it is, we're going to figure out how we want to handle that. Probably just confine it to the parent rect. So that's going to be one of the things that we start today. That's probably going to be the first thing we do. Um, and then the other thing that we want to do is, let's see if I can get this working. I'm going to go ahead and just say, like, I'm going to add a bool value here. Yeah, all of these things are really not liking that. So we're going to add basically the ability to delete nodes. Currently, we don't have a way of doing that. Probably what we'll end up doing is you have to just click to observe the node, and then there'll be a little delete button that you can click on, and it'll pop up a modal saying, like, are you sure you want to delete this thing? And then you can click yes. So those are going to be the things that we focus on today. But to get things started, let's go ahead and open up some of our scripts here. I'm going to open up the logic map. And then I'm also going to open up logic node inspector, node inspector prefabs. It's not what we want. We want list keys. Here we are. So we want the logic node, go to definition, which is a draggable, and I think as of right now, I guess we're not really doing anything there. Oh man, so my draggable scripts are all super old. I'm pretty sure that these are not doing proper stretching. They're not. Well, maybe they are. And delta divided by root canvas transform dot local scale dot x, possibly. So you'll have noticed that my when I was dragging things around, it was incorrectly moving things. So if I were to show up here again, I guess also I can go ahead and I'm gonna move this over. Come over to logic map. I'm gonna look for a list of prefab, find all references, show you. We're gonna say logic list input. So we should be handling. Oh no, that's what this stuff is. So we'll have to do that real quick. Basically, this is something that we've solved a while back, but you can see as I drag around, it's losing its position value. It's not staying with the mouse cursor, and that's because delta is not a good enough value to actually adjust um, its anchored position by. You have to manually scale the delta based on the root transform scale. So you can see that our canvas here is scaled to 1.388955, which is because it's not scaled to 1, those delta values gradually lose their accuracy, and that's why it gets basically less correct the farther away from the position that you clicked on. I think there's actually a set point where it's like the farther away from the center of its pivot, basically, the less accurate it gets, which is very, very vexing. I thought we had set that up to properly counteract it, but it's possible that oops, hold on, that my um, my draggable scripts don't do that, because you can see here it basically just applies counter scaling. Oops, counter scaling here, and that might not be what we want. I think this is actually how we want to handle that, so we have to do some individual wizardry to get everything working properly. Well, although, that's not too bad. Let's go ahead and let that compile and see if our list shows up in the correct spot at least. This is what I get for not having this in screen space when I first started doing this. All of our previous tests for the custom adventure stuff has been have been in overlay mode, which is a scale of 111 and behaves very differently from every other type of render mode on canvases, so that's not actually good enough. Let me go ahead and clear this. In theory, I think this will work, although I'm hoping, well, it should. So let's see here. There we go. Yeah. So you can see here that our position is now correct. It's the top left is basically showing up wherever my pivot is, which is nice. Probably I shouldn't make that work, but whatever. Okay. So we now have that showing up correctly. However, if we were to do that, my bool showed up somewhere weird. So, yeah, that's a whole thing. Probably that means that that value needs to be handled as well. Let's go ahead and uncomment these things out so that they are a little bit easier to work with. Okay. So I'm going to come up to here, and we're just going to say node inspector prefabs. Do this. Did I create? Of course I didn't. Yeah, all right, fine. So we are going to want to put this, I suppose, right here. I'm going to say serialize field, tooltip, blah, 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 private, bool, that is equal to true. If false, will not adjust mouse position values when placing nodes or spawning the node list. So probably actually I should move this, I guess, out of the prefab section and here. Okay, that's going to come off here. I thought, so initialize on behavior selected. Where do we set the position of this? Cached mouse position, there we go. Oh, that's not great. So I guess that means that this is where that goes. Sure. Okay, so that means I'm going to actually put this down to here, I guess. And then we're going to have to do this. So cached mouse position is equal to logic list dot transform dot position, which is shared, so we can get rid of it here, and we can just put it here. See if that spawns the node in the correct place. It should, in theory. And let's see here. So the next thing we would have to handle is you. Which, in all likelihood, I'm going to ignore for the time being, because I've solved this particular problem several times now, but I keep forgetting how to do it, because I only run into it like once every 8 months. I thought that it was just a matter of adjusting local scale, or adjusting the scale of the canvas, but that might not actually be correct. Let's get rid of you. Let's go ahead and hit play. So now the logic list, oh, Yes, the logic list and the um, node spawn position should be accurate again. Okay, so well, that's correct. Cool. That was not at all close to where I clicked. Awesome. So that's not cool. Let's go ahead and jump back here. It's very interesting. So my logic list position is different from the mouse. Oh, it's because of course I did that. Of course I did. That would be why. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. You gotta love it when I do something very, very silly and immediately shoot myself in the foot. All right. So now we're gonna go ahead and clear this out. Let's hit play. So now those things should be spawned correctly. Then the next thing we're going to do is we should be able to move on to, because like I said, I'm going to ignore dragging for now because there's, honestly, I just need to redo my draggable stuff entirely because it's not, it's functional, but that's about it. That's about all I can say for it. It's not accurate yet, and I need to do stuff like confine it to parent and make sure that you can't drag out of bounds and do a bunch of other stuff. There we go. That's better. Okay. So, yeah, all right. Let's get rid of you. So, how exactly do we want to handle that? I suppose. So we're gonna go ahead and save. So when I position my logic map, I guess this is gonna be awkward. So my actual logic list, I think, is a standard rect transform. Yeah, it's not scaling or snapping to any particular direction. So it's going to have an absolute size of 300 by 300, which means I probably can safely rely on that. So let me see here. All right. Trying to think about how I want to handle this. I probably want to basically check if the bounds of the parent rect transform overlap with the bounds of the spawning transform. I'm not entirely sure if we'll get accurate results for that, though. Also, hello, the real Kleinba. Welcome. How are you doing today? We are currently working on some UI stuff for custom game logic, basically. Uh, so the essential behavior that we're trying to avoid right here is um, obviously when you right click anywhere, it will spawn the map, or not the map, the list of behaviors you can place. So you can see that that's going to spawn everywhere. But you can also see if we get too close to the edges, it'll go off edge and it's not attached to the draggable area. So it will basically stay there until you click somewhere else, and that is very weird. So I would prefer to essentially have it not be possible for this particular list to go off screen. And probably what I would do there is I would just say, oh, are these bounds going to overlap? And if so, we're going to adjust our position until they don't. Um, Doing well? Well, that's good. How about you. I am, like always, whenever I do my dev streams, we'll see how this dev stream goes. So if it goes well, then I'll be good. If it goes poorly, then I'll probably be a little unhappy. But so the easiest thing, like I said, is probably just going to be a matter of checking if these rect transform bounds overlap. However, I'm a little concerned because when rect transforms first come into existence, I think there's one frame where they have to basically initialize all of their values, which means that for one frame, a rect transform's bound is 0, 0, 0, 0, so it has basically no size. Um, but that might not be the case if it's a hard set absolute height, width, and height. So we'll try doing that, I guess. Um, I don't remember rect transform utility. Do I have like an overlap? Or I think there's a contains. That's a contained screen point. Flip. Hmm, yeah. Okay. Rectangle. Screen point. Pixel adjust point. Flip layout axis. Yeah. Okay. So I have to make my own rect transform utility. My rect transform extensions, I guess. Dot overlaps. Okay, so I do have overlaps. Overlaps screen space and overlaps. I thought I remembered writing this. Okay. So that means I basically need to just check if these two rect transforms overlap. Okay. So before I do that, I'm going to come down here. Logic list transform. And if we're going to do that, we're going to say if. Excuse me. Logic list dot rect transform dot overlaps with this for now, although I'm pretty sure that's not what we want. Hold on, let me see here. List parent. I guess the list parent is what we want there. And I'm willing to bet that I didn't comment this, so let's go ahead and do this. Make sure the rects are not rotated or handle rotation calculation. Okay, so that's going to be a thing. Simple clamp might just do the trick. Are you talking about? Oh, well. I guess I'll talk to you in a little bit when you get back. Clamping might work, but the problem is that I don't want to clamp its size. I want to shift it entirely, so I just have to basically know where its position is. So let's go ahead and get rid of these things. Wow, why do I have so many debug calls here? That does not seem to actually tell me much. Not crazy about that. Overlap screen space, get world corners. Right. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump back here. If they do overlap, then let's just go ahead and say, man, it would be nice if I could actually get data back on what it's overlapping, but that probably won't be good enough. At that point, what do I want to do there? I suppose if they overlap, then I can just take its size and force its position to be a specific one, although that gets super weird. So I suppose if it overlaps, then we're just going to say logic list dot rect transform dot anchored position is going to be equal to. Actually, no. This is where it gets super weird. So we have to do position. Ugh. Okay. And since we have to do position, that makes things very difficult. Because position and anchored position are two different things. They are they can be mapped to one another, but the process is a little weird. So if possible, I would prefer to use anchored position instead of position. That would give me a slightly easier time controlling it. Um, just because I wouldn't have to try to guess what position it needs to be set to. Um, so let's see here. I don't want to do a while loop because that would be expensive to check rect transform bounds all the time, every frame, moving it one pixel at a time. Um, so perhaps I can pass in information about where it gets overlapped. Perhaps. Um, I guess I can try that real quick, actually. So let's try this. Public static bool overlaps, and I'm going to say this rect transform rect, then rect transform target, and then I can give it, I guess vector 2's, an array of those overlap points. It's a little awkward, but we'll see if we can do it. So we're going to say bool overlaps is equal to, oh, right, main rect. We have to do all the rect transform stuff. Target corners. Oh, right, we got to do all that fun stuff too. Okay, and then we're going to say bool overlaps is equal to main rect dot overlaps target rect. Guess true. So at the very end, we're going to return overlaps. Unfortunately, though, after we do that, I basically need to manually determine these, don't I? Main rect. Yeah, okay. So I have to manually do this. How do I want to handle this? And that does not particularly give me anything useful. So we'll say overlap points and then bool relative. Well, relative. Sure. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to check if two rect transforms overlap each other, and if they do, so we're going to say if overlaps, and we're going to do some stuff. Then we're basically going to say, okay, here is the positions that they overlap in. It'll give you vector 2 positions, basically. But if it is marked as relative, then those will be normalized. So I guess I should actually call this like normalize. Or normalize. Yeah, we'll say normalize. So if it's normalized, instead of saying returning vector 2 at 56 and 27.2, you would just get a normalized vector of like 0.9 and 0.3, basically, whatever those arbitrary numbers mean. So if it does overlap, also welcome back, Klamba. So when you were saying clamping earlier, were you talking about clamping the size of the rect transform, or were you talking about I guess what else were you thinking there? That's what I mean. That's what jumps into my head when you say clamp. But I don't want to just necessarily clamp it so that it's small. I want it to completely shift. So we're seeing basically at which point we are overlapping two rect transforms, and then we're going to try to figure out how to deal with it. Clamping the spawn position. But clamping it between what exactly? Because the spawning position itself, it's positioned at the top left of the rect for the list. which means that if we clamp the spawn position itself might still be within the range of it. Although I guess I get what you're saying now. Instead of having it be up to the edge, it would be up to the edge minus whatever the width of it is. So that could work. Um, Unfortunately, though, because we're using actual positioning, so we're using position, not anchored position, I don't have a good way of really getting those values. It makes it rather frustrating, actually, to try and do those sorts of things, unfortunately. Um, but using position is the only way for me to make sure that I have it spawn at the mouse position as opposed to somewhere weird inside of the rect transform. So we're gonna go ahead and come back to here. We need to find a way to populate these overlap points, basically, which I think just means I have to manually math this out, which kind of sucks. Let's go ahead and peek this. I'm assuming this is a Unity built. I mean, it definitely is a Unity built-in thing, right? Yeah. Okay. So I suppose that means that we'll just have to do this. Uh, oh, yeah, it's gonna be rough. Um, yeah. Okay. So we're gonna say if wow, this is gonna be super awkward. Main rect dot x is less than target rect dot x. So if it's to the left, we then need to say, well, if it overlaps, trying to think, if it overlaps, it's impossible for it to be too far to the left for them not to overlap, if that makes sense. So that means if main rect.x is less than target rect.x, that means that our point is essentially going to say, so we're going to say vector 2 left overlap is equal to new vector 2. We're going to need one for y. Okay, hold on. So here we're going to say if main rect dot y is greater than target rect dot y. And I believe rect transforms are evaluated from top left 0, 0 to bottom right 1, 1, if I recall correctly. So that means that if the main rect.y is greater than target rect.y, we don't need to worry about it. So actually I would want to say that, and then we're going to say if main rect dot y, not y, well, y plus, you know what, I guess I should do this, shouldn't I? Yeah. So min is a vector 2, right? Yeah. I'm just trying to think about the best way to code this without having redundancies and just manually checking every value, but I may have to actually brute force this, which is a bit gross. So I guess we're going to say if y min is less than, nope, is greater than target rect dot y max. So hold on, I got that in reverse, don't I? So if it's less than target max, no. I'm getting my things mixed up here. Here, hold on. Let me make sure I have these values correct in my. So yes, 0, 0 is top left. Okay, so I was right. I don't know why I went back to Unity. Actually, real quick, let me check to see if there's anything. 0, max, center, height, size. Okay, fine. So let's pop back here. So we're just going to go ahead and say, instead of .x, we're going to say .minx or xmin. If that is less than target rect dot xmin, that means we are to the left of this. Yes. And that means that we need to determine whether or not. I have to do this for all 4 directions, don't I? Ugh, how disgusting. Okay. So else, and then we're going to say if main rect dot ymin is less than target rect dot ymin, that means that we must have an overlap at some point. Then we're going to say vector2 min overlap min point is equal to, we're going to say new vector2, and that makes it basically, let's see, at the x, it has to be target rect dot xmin. It has to be an x coordinate on that. And let me think. The y coordinate is going to be the target rect dot ymin, I suppose. Is that correct? I'm trying to think through all the scenarios at once, which is making it a bit awkward. No, that's not correct, actually. So, to give you an example, I suppose I can. We'll do Illustrator. I haven't done Illustrator in a while. So, I basically need to handle several different examples of overlapping. And this is just meant to determine if it overlaps the border. It's not meant to determine if it's contained, if one rect transform is contained entirely within another one. So to show you what I mean, first things first, we'll just do a new document real quick. We'll make it 1024 by 1024, that's fine. So to show you one thing that we can do, we're going to go ahead and select the rectangle tool. So here's one of our transforms, and here is another. I'm actually going to do this. There we go. So here's one of our transforms, and here is the overlap with it. Here's another one. Here's another case that we have to handle. Here's another one. Here's another case we have to handle. Another one. Another. Here and here. Okay. So I think that these are all of the examples for overlaps that I have to consider. Actually, nope, that is incorrect. So give me a second here. I also have to consider things like this. Things like this. Okay. So we have to handle situations where the rect transform completely blows through each side in each direction. We have to handle situations where it is like partially within one side of it, where it will intersect it at 2 points, one on different sides, 2 on one side, 2 on one side, 2 on the opposite sides. Basically, these are the examples that I'm trying to think through all at once. So if we are to the left, if our min x and min y is greater or less than the min x and min y of the target, that means that we are above and to the left of it, basically. And at that point, our points of overlap must be max x on the target on the main one and max or min y on the target, and then the other one would be min x on the target and max y on that. Okay, so that's what that's going for. Sorry, I just couldn't think through it. So we're going to say we're not going to have any sort of target rect is going to be an x min, and then main rect dot y max is going to be one of them, and then we're going to say we'll call this left point vector 2 top point is equal to new vector 2. This is going to be target rect. Nope. It's going to be main rect dot x max followed by target rect dot y min. so this handles this one. And if we are not doing that, so then we have to do else. So these are all mutually exclusive. It's impossible for us to have, say, this scenario and this scenario. It's just impossible. That's not how. There's 4 more containing point A and B. Well, what do you mean, containing point A and B? We're only concerned about the overlap points themselves, not necessarily the target, but to the side. What do you? Let's see. Containing point A and point B, like the top right one, but to the side. Oh, do you mean like if this was slid? Oops, hold on. Like if this, seriously, transform tool? Okay, you're terrible. Like if this was over here? That, now I see what you're saying. Yes. That, well, no. Yes, you are correct. Yes, 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 yes. You are correct. So that is something to consider as well, which means that I then have to do a safety check. So I have to say, and main rect, main rect dot y max is less than target rect dot y max. Okay, so this is basically top left smaller than, well, not necessarily smaller. Top left, and then how would I describe that, I guess? Not extending past the max. Not extending past the target's max y. Okay, and then we're going to say else if, we'll basically do the same thing, so we'll say else. Go ahead and copy this without the and. Okay. I suppose, actually I could contain these right here. So we could say if these things, put you here, put this here. Let's go ahead and move this, put you here, else, that means that our left point is going to be past here. I guess I don't need to say left point. Instead, I can just say, oh man, that's super awkward, but we can try it. How terrible. All right, so I guess we're going to do this. If overlap points dot length is greater than 0, overlap points, hold on, overlap points of 0 is equal to that. So we're basically going to copy this, paste that in there, and we're going to say if it's greater than 1. Okay. That should give me what I want. Overlap 1. The idea here is that I don't want to generate garbage by creating and returning arrays all the time. It would be a little bit, I guess I can call this also overlaps non-alloc. So it does suck that I need to basically determine what the length of it is, but we should be fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this. If that's the case, we still only have 2 points that we have to overlap, which means that we will say it is going to be, so overlap points 1 is going to always be the same, mainrect.xmax. So this one is always going to be true, which probably means that I can actually simplify this a little bit and do this. And we're going to set that to be 0 then. So 0 and 0, which makes this 1 and 1. And we can get rid of this entirely now. Okay, say 1 and 1. And now this is going to be, for the second one, if it's stretching, it's going to be x max and y max, I believe. Yeah. So x max and y max. Okay. So that's top left, extending past the target's max y. Man, it kind of sucks doing this. I do apologize doing this on air because we're basically going to be kind of doing a brute force math comparison for a lot of these things. But I'm actually not really sure what a more elegant solution would be. I'm assuming that there is a generic. Well, you know what? I'm willing to bet that there is a function for this. Let's see. Check if two rect. So let's go ahead and actually put this up over here. And I'm just going to say, let's see. Check if two rect. Well, check where two rects overlap. I wonder if that will tell me anything useful. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of things explaining to how to check if they are overlapping, but it's not going to do a lot to tell me where they overlap. So I guess I have to brute force that, which is a little gross, and I hate doing that. All right. So that means that this should be correct. So this is left side of this target. If our y-min is greater than our target rect y-min, that means we basically have to do the same thing, but with slightly different values. So that essentially means that we are going to be doing the top left there. Actually, it's going to be the bottom left there. So we need to say overlap points is going to be at the main rects, not the main rects x max, but rather the target rects x min, and then the main rects target min or y min. And then let's see if y max is less than target y max. To the left, not extending past that. Okay, so it's going to be bottom left, bottom left. Okay, so we're going to say x min. Again, that is not correct. Actually, no, it would be correct, wouldn't it? Yes, so that would be correct. And this is going to be y min. And otherwise, it's going to be y max and target rect dot. No, this is going to be, oh, hold on. This is going to be main rect dot. Is that correct? And this is going to be target rect dot y min. Y max. There we go. So that's basically the top left, center left, and bottom left. These are the same, aren't they? Actually. Ooh, gross. Okay. Main rect dot y min less than. Hold on. I've done something silly here. Here we are. If y max. Nope. If y max is greater than y max. There we go. Y min. Blah. I almost did redundant math there. Okay. So in addition to this, we are going to, so this is top left and middle left, and these two are exactly the same, aren't they? No? Main rect dot y min. No, I guess I do need to have it like this, don't I? Bleh. This is a lot of gross math. I should have tried this before the stream to make sure that I wouldn't be doing gross math like this. All right. So the next thing we want to do is handle if it is directly above, I suppose. So let's see if it's to the left of the target. Let's try to the right of the target. Oh man, that is, yeah, okay. Let's see, center or right of target. Okay. Oh man, there is so much. So we're handling this, this, and this currently. And we still haven't done this, actually. So we need to handle that. Okay. So I need to say if main rect dot xmax is greater than, or I'm sorry, no, is less than target rect dot xmax. So if that's the case, then we're going to get to do all of this. Else, we are going to presumably, let's see. Left not extending past the target's max x. Okay, we essentially need to do the same, except we're going to be doing 4 points here. So if Wyman is greater than that. Okay, so we're going to try copying this. So if the Wyman is greater than the target Wyman, it means that we are, let's see. I'm sorry, if it's less than, it's going to be above the target. It's going to be below the target. Okay. So if it is, it cannot be, well, so if it is above it, then we're going to be doing, we're going to only have 2, so we're going to say above the target, again, below the target. All right, so our overlap points are going to be definitely the main rect dot xmax. That is not correct. It is going to be the target rect dot xmin. Wait, hold on. Yes, this is still if we're to the left of the target. Okay, so it's going to be the target rect dot xmin, and then the main rect dot ymin. That is correct. That is going to be here, basically. And then the next thing we want is essentially the same thing. So we're saying if ymax is less than our target rect dot ymax, it's going to be 2 points. Hold on, above the target. So if it's greater than, or if it's less than ymax, there's only the one. That's fine. No, I messed this up already. I was looking at it like this, but it's actually closer to this. Something like that. So that makes it y max. Yes. Okay. And then that means that the next thing is going to be, let's see if we don't need to compare this. Oh, hold on. Target max. Okay. So this is above. Okay. So we don't want to say if it's greater than that. We're going to say x max is less than target max. So it's implied that everything here is. Hold on. Thinking through, the implication here from our statements means that this x max is larger than the target's x max, which means that we are going to have points on the right that we overlap with. We already have the top, which is x min for the target rect, which is right here, and y max, correct, for the main. Yep, so that's right here. Now we need to do this, which is x max for the target and y max for the other one. But that's if its maximum is smaller. Okay, I gotcha. So if y max is less than this, our target points are going to be basically target rect. Yeah, target x min and main y max. Target x min, main y max. And if it's past that, then it's not going to be anything, which is awkward because how can this happen? It can't. Okay, so we're going to actually move this over to here. Do nothing. The target rect is contained by the main rect and does not overlap. Okay. So with that, we can now switch over. Oh, you got me again. No. We're good. Nope. Ah, dang it. I scrolled past it. Hold on. Large chunks of code like this always make me confused. And this is where I comment everything. Below the target, bottom left, not extending past the target's max y. I think I messed that up. Hold on. We want that there. We want, let's see. So main rect x, yep, I did that to the wrong thing. Okay. So we're trying to do this here. Top left, let's see, above the target. Let's see, main rect x max is less than left, not extending past the target. We're going to do an else here, which means left. So hold up. Y min, if we're less than that, we're above the target. So this is below the target. If we are below the target, we're basically handling that. So yeah, I got things mixed up again because of course I did. So okay, this is something that I think we're just going to move on from, honestly. It's a lot of me doing brute math, and I hate doing that on the air because it's just me constantly trying to think through things. So I need to sketch a lot of that out on paper. So we're going to switch to something a little bit more interesting than doing that. So we're going to say just a to-do here. To-do clamp logic list rect transform positioning. Okay. Let's go ahead and we're going to pop up to here. I'm going to look at pointer hover rect, node inspector. We're going to go to definition here. Title, fading fields. I am going to. Where actually do I want to handle this? So we need to let this compile real quick. But yeah, it means off the air today, I'm going to go through and manually code all of those individual points. I despise trying to do that stuff on the air because I really need to draw. I need to sketch everything out, and it's hard for me to sketch everything out and do that while I'm also talking. Because more often than not, I always forget one or two particular examples, and then that just kind of ruins things. So, all right. So that is compiled. Let's go ahead and clear that. So the next thing that we want to do, we're going to move on to deleting nodes. For that, we basically want to have the interaction be that you click on the node, and then in the inspector for that node, you will be shown a, so let's pop up a get bool here. You'll be shown a delete button. I was thinking of putting it on the bottom, but it may make more sense to instead have a, well, so I don't want to put it up here because that might make it too easy. Excuse me. To delete by accident. Of course, we have the modal as a safety feature there, so it's not like you're going to double click that. But I would prefer to just have the button be down here. I think that'll just make things a lot easier. So let's go ahead and turn this on. We're going to open up Logic Panel, Mask, Node Inspector. We're going to just turn this alpha up to 1. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to change our scroll view. We're going to make it 70 from the bottom. Yeah, that's a little awkward, but it's fine. Make it 60 from the bottom. No, 65. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to right click, create a button. Let's get rid of view. We're going to add UI text mesh pro text. Let's go ahead and add our 8-bit font. Okay, it's all good. We're going to go ahead and say 5555. We're going to clamp our button to be at the bottom. Pivot of 0.50. We're going to say 10 from the left, 10 up, and 10 from the right with a height of 50. I think that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and we'll rename this label. We'll call this delete. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn on Node Inspector. I'm going to make these interactable so we can see everything properly. My label, well, it's going to be a couple of things first. We are going to go ahead and say it's going to be our solid sliced. Let's go ahead and create a UI image. Stretch this out 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. Okay, I'm going to put the label there. 1 by 1. Wow, that was not what I wanted. I bet you're on, aren't you? Nope. You are just being weird. Okay, 5 by 5 by 5 by 5 by 5, I guess. This is going to be our fill. Okay, and you are actually going to be that. So let's set you to 0.2, none. Normal color is going to be this kind of darkish red. Highlighted color will be actual red. Pressed color will be slightly darker red. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and save this. We're going to go ahead and come up to Node Inspector. We'll add, I should have done this before, but let's go ahead and say serialize field, tooltip, blah, 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 private button, delete button is equal to null. We're going to come up to here and say header, delete. I'm going to go ahead and add a serialized field, tooltip, private, modal option. This will be our delete confirm option is equal to new, and we're just going to say, I guess my text is going to be something like color.red. This is going to be confirm. I guess, so the prompt is probably going to be something like, let's see, when you hit the delete key, it'll pop up a modal. It says, are you sure you would like to delete node? And then it'll show the node's name in brackets. And then the options would be yes and no, I suppose. So rather than confirm, we'll just say yes. Yes, and we'll do that. Let's go ahead and say serialized field, text area, 3 and 5, tooltip, private, string, delete, message. Oops, message is equal to something. Oops. And we'll say message to show when deleting a node. Let's see, let's just show on a modal when deleting a node. I suppose that's going to be, are you sure you would like to delete this node? And then control in, do, and that'll be that. Let's go ahead and say serialize field, tooltip, private string, delete title is equal to delete node, title for the modal when deleting a node, button to click to delete a node. Okay, and let's go ahead and copy this, and we'll just say gray, probably white actually. This will be no. So this will be delete cancel option. Okay, probably not gonna do that for now. Okay, so let's scroll down here. We're gonna say delete button dot on click dot add listener on delete clicked. I know you don't do anything yet because you don't exist. Say private void on delete clicked. Okay. And what that's going to do is it's going to do a couple of things. I need a private void on delete selection, on delete confirmed, int index, blah, blah, blah. We're going to say if index is equal to 0. And then we're going to do something. And then we're going to say UI.getModal, game modal. Say true, and I suppose we can say open modal, at which point we're going to need a couple of things. We're going to say yeah, I guess I can just go ahead and do that. So we'll say get modal true, and then we'll say dot open, and that's going to be our delete message followed by on delete confirmed, then our delete title, followed by delete confirm option and delete cancel option. Pretty straightforward there. Then we're just going to say if we do select yes, which will be index 0, then we want to delete the node and hide the inspector, basically. So on delete confirmed, we will say, I think I have a reference to my current node. Yeah, target node here. So I'm probably going to need an event actually up here at the top that will pass the node back. So we're going to go to logic map, which will listen for the logic node inspector. So we're going to go ahead and say public system.action, and it's a CG logic node, and we'll say node deleted is equal to delegate, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so with that, we now have a public event that we can evoke, and we are going to say all the way down here. We'll say node deleted. Target node, is that what it was? Target node, there we go. And that means that we'll have to go to logic map. Scroll all the way down here. Update on inspector rect exited. Private void on delete node. On inspector delete node, I guess. And that's going to pass in that node. Okay, so we're going to say inspector dot hide. So we'll immediately call hide, and then I need to basically despawn So let's see, show list. What was I doing to spawn these things? Okay, we were actually calling node. All right. So let's go ahead and say on behavior selected. We're going to put it right here. So we'll say private void delete node, and we'll pass in the node that we want to delete. Okay. And from there, we essentially are just going to do this stuff, I think. Let's go ahead and copy this. We're basically going to reverse this. So we're going to remove the node. We are not going to worry about initializing it. I think I have a cleanup function. Do I? Let's peek this. I'm pretty sure I don't have a cleanup at all. I don't think I need one, really. So I think we're good. So we'll just go ahead and get rid of these things. So we'll say node clicked.remove all listeners. Remove all listeners. And then we just need to recycle it. So we'll say pool manager.recycle. Recycle node.gameObject. Okay. I think that's pretty much all we needed to do. And now all I should need to do is call delete node, and then let's see here. Start. There we go. We need to say inspector dot delete node deleted plus equals on inspector delete node. Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's let that all compile. Once that's done, we should see a couple of extra fields here that we can fill in, and then we'll be able to give it a quick test run. Okay, so there we go. Delete button, which is just called button for now, isn't it? I should rename that. That's all good. Oh, I should actually go up to here. Logic node. So we want to say delete confirmed. So delete message is going to be string.format. String.format delete message followed by target node dot label, I guess. Yeah, that's what we want. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay. So let's go ahead and let that compile real quick. I can rename this to button-delete or something. Okay, so now we can make these non-interactable. Have that set to an alpha 0. Well, except it just compiled, so. There we are. And let's see. I think we're good for the rest of it. So, all right, now let's go ahead and give that a shot. So in theory, we should be able to place and delete nodes now. If it so chooses to let me actually play. All right, game, get pool. So we click on that. We have a null reference, which I'm assuming is the game modal. Yeah. All right, hold on. I need to check out UI, where modal's at. You're here. You're a basic game modal. So why are you? I suppose I could make you a default. That'll work too, I suppose. So I could just do this. Game modal ID dot default, and then I can just do that, I suppose, which actually means I could probably just call open modal here and not have to do this stuff. That'll work. Let's see if that fixes the problem. Not not entirely sure why that failed because it was a standard game modal, and yet for some reason it seemed to have issues, which is a bit distressing, but we shall see. All right, let's go ahead, clear this, and we're gonna go ahead and save, try playing again. See what happens. I don't know why it takes so long to shift into play mode. It's not like there's a lot that it has loaded into memory. Really? No modal. Let's find out. Let's see, modal. Modals.id. Definition. Okay, so you are returning that. Interesting. Let's see, modals. Account, modal prefabs. Modal prefab is equal to that. Modal prefab is not equal to null. Huh. That's interesting. So the problem is that we can see up here, like way up here, that so UI has a reference to standard game modal right here, which is set to have an ID of default, and yet it is not doing so. Cool. Well, let's throw in a debug here real quick, just to, I'm kind of curious to see what happens. So we're going to just call debug.log modals vi.id. I'm just going to do kind of the easy way of handling this. We're just going to do that here in our prefabs. So modal prefabs of i.id, and then let's see. I think that's pretty much all we want. So let's see what happens here. Go ahead and hit play there. Well, not play yet. We're going to let that compile. Oh yeah, and that's our overlap, which is fun. Which I suppose is actually, now that I think about it, I wonder if those debug values. Nope. It's not really giving me anything, sadly. Alright, that's fine. So we'll let that compile real quick, and then we should be good. Alright, so let's clear all this fun stuff out, hit play, and see what happens. Okay, so we can say endgame, get bool, click on you, delete. Oh, how interesting. So you did not go anywhere useful. Modal prefab was null, but our modal prefabs count has to have been 0. Well. We never got to debug anything. How interesting. What are you? Oh, that's the GUID. Okay, never mind. Huh. Well, that's curious. It must not be loading it from resources. Oh, it's not. I'm really stupid. It's because I have that. That's why. So just put that in there for that test case. Of course, my test scenario was messing with me. I should have known better. All right, let's try that again. So I'm gonna say endgame, get bool. We're gonna click on this, hit delete. There we go. Make sure you would like to delete this node. Get bool. That seems right. We'll say no. Nothing should happen. Cool. We'll say yes. That should go away. All right. There we go. So we now have support for deleting things, which is nice. Let's go ahead and rename this to like Wumbo. Why not? Cool. Making sure that that showed up. All right, nice. So we have deleting nodes working. Not nearly as difficult as I was concerned for a second that it was going to be. Let's go ahead and let that compile. So the next thing that we would probably want to handle is a new way of doing line render or line connections between nodes. Or, oh, well, actually, do we want to? No. So there are a couple of other things that we could jump to from this point. One of the things that we need to do is handle showing initial nodes. So whenever we start playing right now, for example, everything's just kind of freely floating in space. We don't have a start node, for lack of a better term. Start nodes are basically static nodes that you couldn't delete, and they would do things like, so currently you can see that there's like no nodes that are just on there by default. You can only just place nodes and drag them around. But what we would probably want is we would want to have a set amount of default nodes that cannot be deleted but do represent specific events. So for example, if we were setting up custom logic for, say, an in-game evaluation of the player's stats, then our initial node would say like end game, and then from there you would just connect the end game node to whatever target node you want, and it would start processing values. But that's not the only node that we want, and we don't want that to be in every map, because we might have a map, for example, say you're setting up custom logic for when the player enters a room. You're going to probably have a node that's like on room enter, on room exit. Just a couple of static events that you can reliably know will happen. And from there, we could do specific things like, well, that's exactly why I set things up like this. You can see that we have endgame, and then that takes you to various behaviors that you can use in the endgame logic. But we would probably have something for like room events, which would be values for like what was the entrance or what was the previous room that the player came from. What entrance did they use maybe, or vice versa. What exit did they use? What's the room they're going to? How many rooms have they been in so far? Things like that. And those are categorized by the different types, obviously. So from there, so basically that's what initial events are. That's kind of what I'm calling them. I don't really know what a better event or a better name for them would be besides static events. So we could jump to that, or we could start working on a new system for connecting nodes to nodes. I kind of think I kind of have a few ways that I would like to do that. Previously, how this was working is I would basically I had a sprite that I was manually rotating and scaling to get it to behave correctly. But probably what we would want to do instead is have a line renderer that is just drawing out between the various nodes with a color gradient to indicate flow of logic. That wouldn't necessarily need a color. Well, here, let me just show you what I was working on actually before. So this is what I was kind of considering before the stream today. I was kind of messing around with this. I don't have it functional. I was kind of just seeing how gradients looked in a prototype. So one of the things that I would like to do, for example, is we'd probably do something like, man, I really wish that it wasn't a regular transform. Apparently, if you right-click and say effects trail, it will make it a regular thing instead of something a little bit more sensible. So what I would ideally prefer is that it does like this, and then I can add a line renderer manually, which seems to work just fine. But default line renderer. Yeah, default line. There we go. We'll give it with don't receive shadows, turn you off, turn you off. We'll give you a width of 20. Oops, not loop. 20. With 100, 0. So this is what a standard. I'm sorry. Oh, world space is turned on. There we go. What? There we are. So this is what a standard line would look like. Actually, maybe I made it only 10. I made it 12 wide. Okay. So we would connect our nodes basically by having these long lines, connect them like that. But this approach, while convenient, does have its limitations. The to start with the good things about it, the good thing is that I only need to feed it two positions, a start and an endpoint. So I can say basically the start and endpoints would be whatever the positions of the nodes that you're connecting are. That's pretty easy. That's nice. It means I don't have to worry about doing things like calculating rotation or scale or whatever, because this will work if it's set up like that. It will still look all right. It does actually look a little pixelated, which is surprising because this is a mesh. But handling it that way has some complications. For one, I would have to constantly be setting the position of this, and I don't think that that's too imperformant because it's only really rebuilding one mesh at a time. It's not like you're going to be adjusting multiple. Well, okay, it's one mesh per connection, I suppose, which means in theory it could be bad, but it's not going to be terrible, I wouldn't think. But the other problem with it is that line renderers do not obey masks. So, for example, you might have seen this actually earlier when I sized it too large. It doesn't get cut off when it goes outside of the mask like this, which means that if we were to drag the map around and you would like shove the connection off to the side, you would actually see it floating there like that. And that's unacceptable. We can't do that. So, how do we fix that? The way that I discovered at work to handle that is to have canvases that I manually sort, and then I basically use fudging to make sure that the canvases or the objects in each canvas will render in the correct order. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing, right? It doesn't pay attention to masks, and in addition to that, if I were to create a quick image real quick, and let's turn this like green, something we don't have on there yet. You can see that even though our image is above all of these line renderers, it does not get drawn above them. And that's it disappearing because I get into the clip plane. Which means in order to force that, I have to do something like this. So I need to override sorting and then force this to 1. So that's not great. Oh, and actually, I guess I should probably let's just do this real quick. Hold on. Custom logic panel mask. So let's move these things to be below the mask here. So you can see still that if we go off to the side, it's not clipping. And unfortunately, that is also true for our line test as well, which is a bit gross and sad. I actually thought that the image would function, but it does not seem to do that. So that's unfortunate. Basically, that's using line rendering or line renders, even though it's way more convenient for positioning, it is completely inconvenient for layering because it just does not obey the same sorting layer evaluations as a standard UI object, which really sucks because I would have liked to do stuff like gradients applied to them to indicate which was an exit and which was an entrance. That's basically what I was doing with this red to blue color scheme, as red was an exit and blue was an entrance to a room. So you would be able to identify just by looking at the gradient, if one room was exiting another room. Currently, we accomplish that using arrows, I believe. And arrows are fine, but if you have a particularly long connection, you might not necessarily know that it's an exit or an entrance until you find the side with the arrow on it. And of course, with my current logic on the arrows, I have to manually position and rotate the sprite to handle basically by calculating the average positions of the two nodes that it's connecting. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to really use line renderers just because they're the whole host of issues that comes along with them. Despite being more convenient, unfortunately, we just can't get around it, which sucks, obviously. But, well, so if we can't use line renderers, that means we have to recalculate how our excuse me, how our current line system is working, which I'm not going to do on the air because that will, much like the overlapping bounds stuff, it will take me way too long. It's not particularly difficult even. It's just, well, I guess it is trigonometry, so it can be difficult, but it's also just a lot of brute force math, calculating everything, and I don't like doing that on the air, as we've covered already. Let's see, what are the other things that I can do? I was actually kind of hoping that the overlap stuff would be a little bit easier to do and not require me to slog through so much math, but so it goes. Let's see here. So we have placement, we have deletion. We don't exactly have JSON working, but I guess for now we can sort of get that functional. So let's go ahead and jump over to logic map. I believe we have a say. Oh wait, no. We do have JSON serializable. Are we currently actually exporting that? Delete node to JSON. Okay, so we're not really doing anything with JSON right now. I suppose we could try to come up with a structure for this. So let's go ahead and say actually, let's take a look at, well, all right, first things first, let's go ahead and just say JSON array, nodes is going to be, well, nodes, JSON is going to be equal to new JSON array, let's say for int I equals 0, I is less than nodes, dot count, I plus plus, and then we're just going to say node, I'm sorry, not nodes, JSON dot add, array, oops, nodes JSON. So we're just going to call this nodes. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and peek this, go to logic node, go to definition. I think I'm going to need to have a list here of other nodes that it's connected to, I guess. I suppose that could work. GUID. I don't have a unique thing for this, do I? I don't think. Right. Okay. That means probably I should go ahead and make this a private string. Hold on. Let's go to find all references here. I'm just going to go ahead and rename this as behavior GUID. Okay. And then we'll also go ahead and say private string GUID is equal to this. GUID for the node. I think we'll be fine if we generate GUIDs for this instead of using int values. Int values would probably be faster though. Okay, we'll try doing ints. So we'll say int unique ID is equal to 0. Unique ID for the node. Okay, and that just means I don't want to do random. I really don't. So initialize. I guess we're going to do this. Find all references. We're going to go over here. Go to definition. Nope. All right, so we're gonna pop back here. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna say if JSON.contains key, why can't I type? And we're gonna say ID else. So we're gonna say unique ID is equal to JSON of ID, which of course did nothing because I didn't do it right, of ID. And then otherwise we're going to say unique ID is equal to, we're not going to actually make it 0, I just want to get that indent correct. So this is going to be date time extensions dot seconds since epoch, I suppose. This is the number of seconds since the Unix epoch, which I believe is January 1st, 1970. That should be a unique value. It should be impossible for people to really spawn two nodes within 1 second of each other. I guess that's actually underestimating people. I should not do that. I should instead do milliseconds. That makes it impossible. So let's go ahead and say when we log this out, initialize. I suppose I should have a to.json for this. So let's go ahead and add JSON serializable. We'll come down to here. And we're going to just say public void from JSON object JSON, and public void to, sorry, not void, JSON object to JSON object, JSON is equal to new, JSON object, return JSON, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so from JSON here, I guess we're just going to go ahead and do this. So we'll say from JSON, come down to here, paste this. Pretty straightforward. Okay, and to.json is essentially going to be the same thing, so we're going to say json.add name followed by label.text, and then json.add GUID, behavior GUID, json.add. I don't know if we'll need that. That's actually a good point. I'm not sure if it makes sense to export the fields. I guess it kind of does because I need their value. So we'll go ahead and say adds ID followed by unique ID. And then we have a JSON array. Field array is equal to new JSON array. We'll say json.add fields, and then field array. Okay. After that, we're going to basically do this. So we're going to say instead of field array, we're going to say fields.count. And then instead of all that fun stuff, we're going to say field array add fields of i.toJSON. Haha, how nice. Okay, can I give you an actual capacity value, perhaps? No. All right. So from there, we're just going to say field array.add fields i.json. I think if we go to this, it should actually give me everything. Yep. All right. How wonderful is that. That should give me everything in the logic node, which means that now I can come back to here, and then in my toJSON call, which is somewhere around here. There we go. I'm going to say nodes.json.add nodes of i.toJSON. Okay. That is pretty straightforward. And from there, we are also going to want to say, I guess position would be good. So let's go ahead and add, we're going to do all this fun stuff. I'm going to say json.add pose, followed by rect transform dot anchored position dot toVectorString. Okay, and then up here in our from JSON, I suppose we're going to do basically the same thing we did for ID, where we're going to say if JSON.contains key pose, then we'll say rect transform dot anchored position is equal to JSON of pose dot to, right, we gotta cast you to a string, hold on, dot to vector 2. All right, pretty straightforward there. Okay. I think we're good then. So if we go down to our UI, I suppose I should, let's go ahead and just let that compile actually. We're going to open up Logic Test View. Well, there we go. We're already doing that. So now if I hit save there, I should, when I click save, I should basically see the JSON for all of the nodes that we have so far on the map, which is good. Gotta stretch. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn this off actually. I'm gonna turn off line tests. Hit save. Okay, so we'll try logging it when it has nothing on there. It should just be an empty object with an empty array called nodes. So I guess that makes it an object with an empty array, not an empty object with an empty array. There we go. Let's go ahead and add a get bool. Hit save. Ooh, look at you. Really? Huh. Really? How curious. Let's go ahead and clear this. You're fine. Right. Okay, I think that was the problem. Oof. That is not great. Right. So our value is 0, and it's a bool, which that makes sense. So none is a 0 value, whereas test bool would actually give us the value we wanted. That should give us like 10, yeah, 10 or something. So this is the basically the hash for the target variable. So that makes sense. Type is 20, which I think just tells us what its target is, right? Let's see, type, int type. Yeah, logic program type. Okay, so that just tells us what type of value it's expecting. We don't really need things like tooltip and name. That is redundant information, especially for saving. The only important things here are the name, the GUID, the ID, the position, and the values of the fields. Everything else is incidental. This is problematic. So the reason that we don't need things like name, tooltip, and type is because that's expected to be the same. Since we already have this GUID, we can basically get what that field information should be. All we really care about is the value. That's it. That's all we care about. So okay, I think I have an idea. So we're going to do a couple of things. One is we're going to come up to here. We're going to go to logic map. We're going to go to toJSON logic node. So field array is the thing that we need to handle. I'm sorry, fields. So CG logic value. Let's go to definition here. And I am going to say, put you on one line. So the raw value for the field. Yeah. toJSON. I don't want. Oh man, that just sucks. Okay, so we're gonna go through here, and on our logic node, when we're calling toJSON, instead of doing this, I guess what we'll do is we'll say field array dot add fields of I dot raw value. Except you get confused there, don't you? All right. Definition here. I'm going to come up to here then, and I'm going to say, I don't want to do that. I was basically trying to come up with a way that conveniently let me add this stuff, but I guess I don't want to do that. Yeah, all right. I'm basically going to have to do the same thing. Excuse me. Where I do this, which is gross. I'd prefer not to do that. I would like to just be able to get the value back as a JSON value. Oh, there we go. That's what I can do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just say public JSON value get value JSON, I suppose, and that's just going to return return JSON, return new JSON null. That's pretty straightforward. Otherwise, we're going to go down here, paste that, and we're just going to do that. So we'll say return new JSON number. That return new JSON number. That return new JSON bool with that. And then return new JSON string. There we go. Oh. Right. Alright, fair enough. I guess that's true. So let's just do that. here, get rid of this else statement. All right, so now we should be able to come up to here, and we can simply say this dot get value JSON, and that should add it without any extra problem to us. So let's try that. So no, we have to give this a new thing, so it's going to be called field values. How about just values, actually? And then, oh boy, we get to do the fun stuff here. I suppose I should have a separate thing, so get value JSON and set value JSON. So we're going to say public void set value JSON, JSON value JSON, and then I suppose, oh dear, I guess the type is what we want here. So we'll say switch type case dot boolean. Then we're going to say break case dot float break float range case blah 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 dot integer case dot integer range case dot. In addition to that, we also want variable, and honestly, all of these are going to be the same. So case dot variable float case dot. So the reason that floats, bools, and all these things are going to be evaluated as ints is because if we're targeting variables, we are actually targeting their hashes, not their string names. The string names are purely for human convenience, for human readability. They are not actually what's used on the back end, only their hashes are. And that's because that's all we care about. That way you can rename them to be whatever you want, and it's not going to break all of your code. So case dot string. The next one, I'm not sure what to do about interactive object and item yet. I have the feeling those are also going to be integers, but for now I'm going to just do this. So break. All right. So that means that we basically want to do this. Raw value is equal to, oh dear. Oh, this might be completely irrelevant. I guess I can just do that, can't I? So for the time being, I'm just going to comment this out, but I think I might just be able to do that. Boop. Okay, and that means that I can come back in here, and when we call from JSON, we can populate our fields as expected, and then we're basically going to say if JSON.contains key, blah, blah, blah. What cases were you thinking of? Also, welcome back. So if it contains the key, not fields, just values. If it contains values, then we are basically going to do this. JSON array values is equal to new, not that, is equal to JSON of values do as JSON array, and then we'll say for int I equals 0, I is less than values.count, I plus plus, and we're just going to say fields of I dot set value JSON values of I. That should be all we have to do, and I'm hoping that that will work. So now let's go ahead and save that out again. We're going to let that compile, and that should shorten our fields pretty notably, actually. Unfortunately, that does mean that we need to add some safety measures, because when we load things back in, we have to parse the JSON as is. We're not going to be able to do like a partial parse, so we need to basically, if we don't have the JSON for the fields, but we do for the values, then we need to get the JSON for the fields from the list of behaviors, which we will use the GUID that we get passed in to find that, basically. So let's go ahead and clear that. I want to play. I'm going to put down a single node, and then we should be good. Oh dear, that is not good. Shite. No, we're fine actually. I lied. Okay. Phew. I was a little worried for a second there because when we saved out, I was like, oh no, nodes can have the same name, which means that they might have conflicting IDs, which means they would overwrite each other. But it's an array, so I don't have to worry about that. So I can just say like get bool, hit save. You don't work yet because, of course you don't. Right. So I need to add a safety net or safety value for that. So logic value. You were still being logged because of that, I'm assuming, right? Logic node to JSON. Logic value 47. Yes. Okay. So first things first, we need to say if raw value, let's see if we can get this to work properly, dot equals null, else we're going to do this fun stuff. Basically, we're going to just grab this stuff. So we're going to say return new JSON number, and it's going to cast to 0, and then to 0f, and then to false, and then... Oh, right, no, this won't work. So it's not going to be that, it's going to be switch type for the state. So switch type. It is basically going to be that thing that I typed up here. So I need to copy this. I suppose we'll return new JSON null, if nothing else. So this is going to return new JSON number of 0, 0f, JSON bool for false, and then return new JSON string with an empty value. Okay, so that should fix that problem of throwing those null references when we haven't examined the node yet. And the reason that is happening, by the way, is because when the node is initialized, it doesn't have a value. Its value doesn't exist. And it's not that its value is defaulting to something, it's that it literally is null. So when it tries to grab that value to examine what it is and what it should do, it's just null. And that's why it was throwing an error. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let that clear. We're going to hit play. And then it should function now with that safety net in there. We're gonna hit save. All right, endgame get bool. That skews my results because I was not meaning to do that. Oh, hey, that actually did. It didn't evaluate correctly. Oh man, yeah, that's about right. How do you do that then? Yeah, that's not going to work. Man. I don't want to do a try catch. Oh, but I might have to. How gross is that? Okay, fine. Well, then I guess we're going to do that. So, so we're actually going to do this. We're going to change this to try. Nope, not that. Sorry, try. And then we're going to move all of this into a catch statement. Catch. And we're going to go ahead and say system.null reference exception. that is the thing that we were seeing, so that should be the only exception that we really need to look for. All right, so that should properly do it. I hate doing try catches. Try catches to me always feel like you've just given up as a programmer, and you're like, we'll just let the error fire, and then we'll figure out what we can do with it from there. I know that the error doesn't fire if you catch it, but to me, it's a very thin line. You basically put try catches in when you know that your code could be wrong, which is a bit of a rough thing to do. But we'll see if that fixed it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those, as you can tell. So if we save, that's what we get so far. Let's go ahead and add node and hit save again. Okay, values of 0, that's targeting none, that makes sense. So cool, we just shrank our JSON for that pretty significantly. So now we do have, and this is what I was talking about, by the way, so I was worried for a second that we would have nodes with the same name, which means that they would overwrite each other, but we're listing them in an array, so we don't have to worry about that. So we basically shortened our important bits to just be the name, the GUID, the ID, the position, and the values. We don't need to have information on the fields because we can get that from the GUID. It does become a problem, though, when we try to load this stuff in, because if we don't have let's see here. Oh no, did I do this? Oh dear, was I stupid? I might have been from JSON to JSON. Here we are. Set value JSON field array as JSON object fields from JSON. I think that comes from logic map. Initialize. Blah 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 blah. New JSON. I think I might have actually accidentally. I did. Crud. So we got to come back here. I accidentally deleted that. That was stupid of me. Why did I do that? So I need to say if JSON.contains key. I think it was fields. Just to be sure. Repeat definition here. Yeah, fields. Then I basically want to say needed, because that's the field. Never mind. Okay, false alarm. False alarm. So I do want to actually wrap that though. So I want to say if JSON.contains key fields, blah blah blah. Because if it doesn't contain it, there's no point in doing that for loop, especially because it will throw in a null reference. The next thing that we want to handle there is if it does not contain fields, we need a way of retrieving it. And that's where things get awkward. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to do a couple of things. I suppose we're going to do this. I'm going to come up to here. I'm going to say public void from JSON. JSON, oh, not that, stop it. Object, JSON, followed by logic map, which actually no is not what we want. Instead we want node, logic behavior, target behavior. This is what we want. We have to dig through all of our things. It's equal to collection index, collections, target behavior. That's what we need. Behaviors of I. So I need to basically grab all of these things. Let's see, I have a way of retrieving? Okay, fine. That's weird. I guess we would do this then. Public CG logic. I'm sorry, CG, not GC. CG logic behavior. Get behavior string GUID. And we're just going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than behaviors dot length if I plus plus and we're just going to say if behaviors of I dot GUID is equal to GUID. We'll return behaviors of I. Otherwise, we're going to return null at the end here. All right. So with that, we now need to pass in, is it a list? Is that what I made it? Please tell me I did. Of course not. Okay, whatever. That's fine. As long as it's, I guess that's fine. So that's CG logic behavior. An array will have behaviors. Okay. I might. Should I centralize that? So. No. I'm going to go ahead and go up to logic map, and then I'm going to just add a method for this. So we're going to say up at the very top, I guess. Do public CG underscore logic behavior get behavior string GUID. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and loop through this. Behavior selected. I guess we're just going to go ahead and do this. Let's just do this. You know what? It's going to return null at the very bottom. But above that, we're just going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than behaviors. I'm sorry, collections. Collections dot length I plus plus collection. Oops. Well, that's rather gross. All right, let's just do this. CG underscore logic behavior is equal to null. We'll just return behavior at the very end here. And then we're going to say behavior is equal to collections of I dot get behavior GUID if behavior is not equal null. We're going to break out, and then we'll just return that. So that should work. We're going to go ahead and go back to logic value real quick. I'm sorry, logic node. So this is going to do a couple of things. So we're going to grab all of these. That stays in from JSON, actually. Otherwise, we are going to move these things up into here. So now, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. We're going to call from JSON, give it just the JSON value, and then we'll do some checking here. We're going to do else, and then I also want to go ahead and come back over to here. We want to say on the logic map when we show list, delete node on behavior selected. Here we are. Instead of calling get node JSON, well, actually no, that's fine. Then we're going to pass this. Okay, so we're going to go back to here. We're no longer going to be a list of behaviors. We're going to have CG underscore logic map. Else we're going to call map.getBehavior. We'll pass in the behavior GUID. Okay, and that's going to give us our CG logic behavior is equal to that. And then we'll be able to say behavior.get node.json, which is, I believe, a JSON object. JSON, no, node.json is equal to that. And then from there, we'll be able to say, basically, it's going to be this. Okay. So that should handle loading our logic node a little bit better. I don't really have a good way of testing this. I guess I can save it real quick and then paste it. So let's go ahead and do that, I suppose. Oh, right. Let's just change that to from JSON. Because we're not actually doing anything with initial... hiccups. Excuse me. Yeah, we're not actually doing anything with that, so we can get rid of you. So the other thing... Actually, we'll keep you in there. Well, now we'll get rid of you for now. So the other thing that we want to do is we're going to go up to logic map, and I guess from JSON when we come through here is going to be fun. So we're going to need to iterate through all of that. We can try that real quick. So we're going to say JSON array nodes JSON is equal to JSON dot not that as JSON array. So it's going to be JSON nodes. Then we're just going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than nodes JSON dot count I plus plus, and then we're just going to say I guess we can go down to here, and we're just going to say, this is very awkward. I don't want to say public, so we're going to say private void add node JSON object node JSON blah blah blah. So we will essentially want to call, let's see, cache mask position initialize. Come down to here, node rect transform. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward then. So we're just going to go ahead and paste you here, come back down here. I don't really think I need anything beyond that, so let's go ahead and come back up to here. We're just going to let everything sort itself out, so I don't need this. I just need the actual JSON, so we're going to say node JSON. We don't want that either. So real quick, let's go to definition. I'm 90% sure that I made sure that it would actually set anchored positions, correct? No. Oh, yes, right there. All right. So that should work in theory. All right, I'm going to kind of test this real quick, and we're just gonna really fast brute force this. So we're gonna say header test JSON. We're gonna say public string JSON. Well, we'll say map JSON is equal to that. A text area, like, I don't know, 5 and 10 or something. That's going to be pretty big. Then we'll add a private void on load clicked map dot not map JSON map dot clear clean up. I don't have anything for that, do I? Not yet. All right, so we're just gonna have to kind of cheat at it. So we're just going to say map JSON or logic map dot from JSON, and we'll just give it the good old JSON parser. Of course, you're not in there. Give me a second here. Sleepy.common. Come up to here. We're just going to say JSON parser dot parse, and then map JSON. All right, that should be good. So let's go ahead and let that go. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a map real quick, hit save, copy its JSON, stop playing, start playing again, paste that JSON in, and then hit load, and then we should be good. Do I still only have the one? I also forgot to do that, didn't I? So on save clicked, I need to do a couple of things. I'm going to copy this, make this a load button. Load button. Listener on load clicked. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to title up here. We're going to copy this. I'm just going to duplicate you. We're going to call you load button. Yes, cat, I see you. Yes, I know. Cat wants all the attention. All right. Give me a second. We are almost done here, I think. One. We'll give it a position of negative 175, I guess. Let's go ahead and just call this load. Okay, I'm going to come up to here, sign our load button, all this fun stuff. Let's hit save. All right, I'm just going to put a couple of nodes down on there. We'll see how everything parses out. All right, we're going to do get bool here. Let's go ahead and rename this to bool test. We'll give it a target variable of that. Let's close you. Let's go ahead and make a static integer value that we'll leave at the default. We'll make a static Boolean variable that we'll go ahead and set up to be true with Boolean as its default value. Okay, I think that gives me a decent range. I'm also going to go ahead and do an integer. Oh, that was super awkward. Awesome. We'll give it like 50. And then we'll save this. Let's save this out. So this is our JSON for this. It is pretty accurate from what I can tell. 2 integer values. One with 0, one with 50. Let's go ahead and come up to here. I'm going to copy that out. I'm going to stop playing. I'm going to select our custom logic test. I'm just going to paste this in. Everything seems to be correct. So let's go ahead and save that and load it again. Well, not load it again, load it to test, I suppose. So this should work if I'm correct. I was a little worried about that. Did I, from JSON, go to definition. Whop! Of course I didn't actually finish it for some reason. Why wouldn't I? Timeout. Where did I put all of the... Oh, right. I forgot to call add node. Of course I did. Add node. Nodes JSON of I. Oh, right. As JSON object. Of course. I feel rather silly. Okay. Let's try that again real quick. Should still function. We just needed to let that compile. All right. And finally... Nice. Darn it. Target index is equal to value dot raw value is equal to null. 0. What? I must have forgotten something. Target index. Initialize is a node variable field. Raw value, value dot raw value is equal to null. So it's going to be 0, otherwise it's going to be value dot raw value. I guess we can try. Interesting. All right, so we're getting different values here, or at the very least, I think we are. So we'll end it there for now. It could be that it's just having casting problems. So this is the actual JSON that we saw. You can see that we have values of 0. The other value should be 50. Yeah. The value of true on that. And then we have a bool test with value of 10 is the target. So that's okay. So it is saving out correctly. I just think that it is not getting saved incorrectly. That can't be right. 2, 1, 4, 7, 4, 8, 3, 6, 4, 8. Crap. These also have the same ID. They all have the same ID. Crap. Okay. So that's not giving me anything useful into it. So there are a couple of things I need to do there, but we do have a couple of things we accomplished today. At the very least, we have correct placement for the nodes and the list in a standard setup for the UI instead of having it in overview. We can delete nodes now. We no longer are forced to just stop playing if we want to clear those things. We can save out JSON, including all of the values for the fields that have been set. And we can kind of load it in, but we don't actually have it parsing correctly yet, I don't think. So some pretty decent steps today. I guess the next things that we really want to focus on are going to be getting things to parse in correctly, obviously, and then static events, I suppose, and then connections, I think, in that order. So I think that's a pretty good place to stop for the day. Announcements off the top of my head, I don't really have any, so we should be good for next week. And yeah, so as always, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.